Church.
Good morning.
I'm a new member. Really been here just now close to 2 years, and it's been a wonderful experience. And this is a great church and a loving church, and I'm so thankful that we are part of it. For those who know me, my full name is Alfonso Dominguez, but I just go by Al. I was born in Cuba in 1950 to a wonderful big family. My parents are, on my mother's side, there were 18 kids, and then 14 made it to adult. But my grandfather, after his first wife passed away, he remarried and had another 11, so you can imagine how many. So a lot of family members. On my father's side were 14 also. So very large family. I had uncles that would have up to 16 and 18 kids. And so getting together for Christmas was a wonderful time. It was just about take the whole block. And a lot of food to feed everybody. But it was a loving family. We are all from the, originally from Spain. My grandfather and grandmother are from Malaga, Spain, which is the southern part of Spain, close to the Mediterranean. And on my mother's side, they're all from the Canary Islands. So again, therefore, we were first or second generation in Cuba. Now, my parents all ended. They came first to Havana, but they all ended in Guantanamo, which is in the very eastern part of the island. The island itself, it's long. I have read an article in National Geographic magazine mid-1920, and it compares the distance is like from New York to Chicago. It's nearly 900 miles. And the island is about the size of the state of Pennsylvania. So it's not a small little place. It has all kinds of climate, a lot of mountains, high enough that there are frost and real cold nights. And desert area on the southern side, close to the Caribbean Sea, because the mountains are all east and west. So there's rain on the north side, but on the south side is desert. So we were guaranteed 365 days of the year we could go to the beach and there'll be sunshine. Unless a hurricane came up. That was the only time that we had bad weather on that part of the coastline. But it's very lush, the island is, and as a child, I grew up in a wonderful setting. Again, going to wonderful beaches that were only for us. The entire family, we camped the whole weekend and just brought all the necessary stuff. Or if we went back to the farm where my grandparents on my mother's side, his brother and several other members of the family had a very large coffee plantation with everything, with generators that will clean and depulp the coffee and dry it and roast it, and it came out already in bags. And it was funny, that place in here, we watched TV back in the 50s. We could get better Haiti, Port-au-Prince station, or Jamaica than Havana. Was too far away. But anyway, so I grew up watching what you watch, you know, Bonanza and Sea Hunt and all the typical American show. I grew up with all that and listened to the and I grew up with a lot of Haitians. They were mainly the coffee pickers. And Jamaicans, I knew a lot of them because they worked at the Guantanamo U.S. Naval Base. So, again, I had a rich, grew up with a lot of, my neighbors were Chinese. And my best friends were all Swedish. So you can imagine, Italian, it was like here. The island was populated, very diverse from many places. Again, one of our best friends were Jordanian and Lebanese, that they used to make noodle. They have noodle factory. The island was really wealthy, like that article that I read in mid-1920 from National Geographic magazine. It described Cuba being as one of the jewels of the whole Latin America, so wealthy. And I grew up as a child because we had a large family and a lot of friends. I traveled the whole island. I went to every place. I went to mountains, to desert, like I say, to the northern side. The island has 6,000 little islands also around the main island, which this one being the largest one, the island of Pine, which is about a third of almost the whole South Florida portion. And there are little islands in here. There are about the size of Marion County and larger. So there's a lot of tropical places. And I remember seeing the pink flamingos place where they laid their egg and raised their chicks. So I grew up, you know, seeing crocodiles, saltwater crocodiles and caimans, and the area right here, it's almost the shape of a shoes. It's really like Everglade. It's a huge area of wildlife, rich, and then all the migrating birds as they come from Canada, they're all stuck in there on the way south to South America. So again, it was a very rich place, and I got to enjoy it. I got to travel all over the island, and people don't realize we had railroad everywhere in the island. Even when in the mountains they had a narrow railroad track that they can bring small carts all the way to the high points and far away places that most people would think that we got to it. And or we can travel as a child at age 6 and 7. We traveled in Pullman coach, sleeping coach, from Guantanamo all the way to Havana. We used to fly. There was airports everywhere. The city of Guantanamo back then was 500,000 people. Wow. So there were large population. The cities were large and well developed. Again, it's just amazing. I grew up in, but now that is all destroyed in just a short period of time. As we see right now what's happening to Venezuela, how such a wealthy nation is being completely destroyed. Cuba was the #1 producer of sugar cane, had industry, everything that you can imagine. I grew up with all of the amenities and everything that we had in here, except for washing machine. That's I never saw in Cuba. There was one, the Swedish people had washing machine. But all I have to say is that it was really a wonderful place. It was really a gorgeous place that I really loved and will share the memory. But as I see what had happened, and now people that go back to the island, and guys that work for me that have recently come, and the destruction, everything, again, the lies. As Castro took over, the first 2 years were wonderful. He promised prosperity. He most of all declared himself that he was going to bring the country to be a democratic country. And there's a PBS show, and you can get it through and the internet. And they interviewed Castro before he took over, and he explained how he was going to bring this equality and democracy. And they said, "Well, you're talking more like a socialist." He said, "No, we will never be socialists." And that interview says it's so clear. It was all a lie. Once he took over and he had control of the entire island, and the people were really bowing down to him and believing everything he said, then in 1962 he declared the island to be a Marxist, communist island, and everything went boom. He took over all the industry. Today, there were probably over 100 sugar mill. Now they call historic industry. They're all destroyed. They distributed the wealth of that was in the island originally to convince the people that he was for them, and he was doing all this good for them, for the island. And then once all that was destroyed and used up, there was nothing left. So today in the island, the houses are falling down. Everything, there is nothing. All the infrastructure, all the highways are full of pothole. You can't go anywhere. The guy that worked for me, his wife goes every year because she still have a son and grandchildren out there, and she goes, and every time they come so discouraged of how dilapidated the whole place is. And I know the church that I was a member of, the First Baptist in Bellevue, and the one in Leesburg, the pastor. I have visited many times. One of my sons is part of that church, and he says, you know, we have to bring even the nail, even the coffee that you guys used to produce so much coffee, and the sugar, we have to bring it so we can share it with the people in Cuba because they don't have it. They don't have nothing. You go to a public bath and there's a lady standing with a roll of paper and gives you 2 sheets of paper so you can use that. They have absolutely nothing. But it's all for the name of the revolution. We're supposed to sacrifice everything for the revolution. No. All the people that are in the government, they live in luxury. In total luxury. They have taken all the homes of the wealthy that were in Cuba, and that's where they lived themselves. And the sad part to me, I came in here to this country and I see what's going on, and people still are pulled and believe that the government's supposed to provide for everything. That we should be, you know, going more to socialism, you know, so there will be equality. Take from the very rich and give it to the poor. Well, the other thing that happened, when you do that, I know our farm, my mom went back before one of her brothers, her dear brother, that was 2 years older than her, that she was very close, who was dying of cancer. And she went in 1968 to see him and went to see the farm. This was not a little farm, it was nearly 50,000 acres. Her portion that she was going to inherit was over 3,000 acres. All that was taken and then destroyed. There is no coffee plantation. There is not a single plant of coffee left in that huge farm. All totally destroyed. They gave it to the people. They don't know. They don't know how to take care of coffee. It's not theirs. It belongs to the country, to the communist power. And once it was destroyed, that's it. My mom says it's now an empty pasture, deforested. There are only horses in there. Those who are surviving because they're even eating the horses. In Cuba, there's hardly any horse left in the whole island. Everything is destroyed. And so here, you know, we see this situation, and then I hear this in this country that, you know, we want to, I hear that many states now, especially Hawaii, wants the government to provide for every single citizen. We're going more into the mentality that the government is supposed to provide for everything. I'm sorry. Those are empty promises, because eventually it will end destroyed, just like we've seen before our own, what's happening in Venezuela. The National Geographic magazine just last month shows an article of pharmacies inside of a big fancy hospital, totally empty. There's nothing. They go into Santeria to worshiping the devil for finding cures because they don't have medicine, they don't have no doctor. They're all fleeing, all the educated, just like the Cubans. When I went to Australia in 1988, the cardinal of the Anglican Church was sitting next to me. And he heard my accent when I was talking. He said, "Where are you from, bloke?" And I said, "I'm from Cuba." He said, "That's funny. I'm from Sydney, and there's 50,000 Cubans living in the city of Sydney, Australia." And we're like, wow. Because they all took them when they left Cuba into Spain, all the engineers and well-educated doctors and lawyers and everything, they picked them up and took them to Australia. So Australia has a large population of Cuba. Today I have family all over the world, even in Australia, in Bolivia, and Venezuela, in Europe and France. Because they're all searching for a place to get out of the submission of communism. So again, the other thing is that I have to say, it was by the the power of Christ. I received Christ. I was raised Catholic and Baptist as a child. My grandfather, as a member of the Masons, could not be Catholic. He had to be a Protestant. And so he was a Baptist. So I grew up between the two religions. But I received the Lord at age 14 in a city right here in the central part of the island of Morone, Camagüey. And it was funny, it was 2 years before actually a year and a half before I swam out of the island. So everybody will get clear. I didn't swim from Cuba to Key West. That's 90 miles. Okay? That's just, people have tried, and very super trained and athletes that try that. It's very hard. What I did is right here on the very eastern part, close to the city of Guantanamo, where I was born and raised, there's a large bay. And it's called Guantanamo Bay. And it's very deep, because right here between Jamaica and the Cayman Island, there's a trench. And it goes down to 16,000 feet. So right off the coast of Cuba, and even the bay, they're several thousand feet deep. So it's their natural deep harbor. So this is the way it is. The Guantanamo Bay is just facing the Caribbean Sea. You enter through, and this green area on the first part of the bay, the outside part of the bay, is where the naval base, Guantanamo U.S. Naval Base, is. And that territory right there is about the size of Marion County. It's a large area, very mountainous and everything. And then there's a narrow canal going to the other bigger and wider bay. Well, it's from this back side of the bay that I swam on October 31st, 1965. And again, my story is pretty long. The little novel or story or whatever that is written about me, the title is Swim to the Light. Thank you, Russ, for that song. I love that group I think it's from Ireland that they're from. But it talks about, our Lord is the shining light that we need to follow. And my instruction to be able to find my way from this large bay into that narrow passage to the American side, it was a bright line that I have to follow. In the darkness, I have to select the darkest night. The night, well, I didn't select it. I was dating some young lady, acting like I'm dating a young lady, in a little city near where I can meet some people, and I got connected with a family that was willing to take me in and train me and guide me in what I needed to do. So on that night, October 31st, they were having a carnival in that little town. And on top of that, one of the two Coast Guard that check and guard the bay was broken, so there was only one. And low tide that time. So when I got to that little town, I thought I was going to have fun that night, go in the carnival. And as soon as I walked through the house to take the daughter on a date, the father says, "Tonight is the night." And thank God, because if I would have planned and thought about it, what I was going to do, I would have never done it. Okay, so yes, I got there and they told me, that's it. And the only information they told me is, get in the water. The two grandparents sat on the seawall with a rocking chair, looking in the opposite direction of the street, make sure that there was nobody, that could see me running from the house, and between the two rocking chair, stripped totally, naked, get in the water, and then the instruction was swim, swim, swim to the center of the bay in the darkness, and then when you guide yourself through the North Star, then when you get to see toward the south a big bright light, that's the opening of the channel. Then swim to it. I jump in the water 7 o'clock. Okay, by that time, we're in the time that 7 is already dark. It's in the fall. And so I jump in the water. Very cold still, because this deep ocean is not nice warm water. And the other thing too is the fact that, I have to, I don't know how long. All I know that I jumped in at 7 o'clock. And when I finally made it to the American side, it was between 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So that was a very long time. There was another young man that jumped with me into the bay. When we got almost to the center of the bay, the only single Coast Guard that was in the island, in the bay, was heading directly to us. And we had one choice, is just go under in the darkness of the water. And swim one direction in the darkness, and I swam in the other direction. I thought of those few seconds seemed like hours underneath the water, and I didn't know which way to, I was swimming. But when I needed to take a breath, I had to come up. Knowing in my mind that they don't pick you up. If the Castro Coast Guard sees you, they shoot you when you're meat for the sharks. That's it. They don't pick up nobody. Without fear, I came up just for a gulp of air and just swallowed air and went back under because the light was still searching over. So when I made it to, finally went over, I was by myself from then on. So it was me and God. And the faith that I knew that I was in the hand of the Lord. Through the whole time that I was by myself in that darkness, was I trusted the Lord. He was with me. I was praising Him, and I was singing Amen to Him. And that's what gave me the strength. Before I made it through the narrow passage, then the Cuban side saw that there were people escaping, and they started shooting at us. Again, He protected. He had that shield around me, because I could hear and see the bullets going into the water and the sound, boom, boom, right next to me. But then the American side, when the Cubans started shooting to the people, they knew the people were escaping, they turned in giant floodlight, and they blinded the Cuban side. They cannot aim. They kept on shooting, but they could not aim, because they could not see. And again, by the grace of God, I made it into this country. But it kills me. When I came here, the freedom that I felt, and I still feel that I see my country giving in, and giving in, and giving in to the devil, and believing that we deserve all this thing, that I have right, for whatever right you want to claim, or whatever religion you want to claim, and we're walking away from the Lord. Please focus your eyes on the one that truly saved, and His name is Jesus. Amen. I have a lot more to say, but I hope that I have a little time to, if you have any questions. I brought in enough of the little story of how I escaped Cuba, swim to the light. All we ask is about $10. 100% of that, I made a commitment 3 years ago. It goes to the Good News Club. So 100% of that gift, if you decide one of those books and I'll sign it, it goes totally to the Good News Club, because I believe that we have a mission field here, right here in our backyard, and it's to reach the children for Christ. In this lost world and going darker and darker, we need to shine the light brighter and brighter each day that we live. So, any questions?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I read your book. There was more than just the Coast Guard that was firing. There was other things going on in the wall. What else was happening?
Okay, on this narrow area here, they're like garret or a little structure, like a little tower, with soldiers in there, keeping an eye on what's going through that narrow passage. And they're close enough, within maybe less than 100 feet, that they can see exactly what's going through. So they're the ones shooting. The Coast Guard can only travel in this big area. Once you get into that narrow passage, they're too close to the American side, and they will not come that close. Because if they get too close, the United States, if they pass that little border line, then you don't see it, but it's there. They're going to shoot them down, so they don't get too close to that
important to know how old you were when this happened. You didn't.
I was 15 years old when I escaped, 15 and a half. A scrawny, skinny young man that I never thought that I could swim or stay in the water for that long. No. I practiced a lot, and I could be floating and swimming for about an hour and a half. But never in my mind I thought it would take me that long. And again, when you swim in the dark, you don't swim in a straight line. There's no way to swim in a straight line. So again, what I was hoping there would be a short trip and to be a long, very long trip in the water. And the first treatment, once they pick me up out of the water, is to treat me for hypothermia. Because again, God was the one protecting me. There's no other answer. I could not have any other answer. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have, the knowledge really of marine, maritime, whatever, out in the middle of the ocean in darkness. And there's sharks in there. I know. I have a picture in the book in there. And especially the phosphorescent light is the other thing. I mean, in the darkness, if you make any motion in the water, you start glowing green. And I thought, here I am, a neon sign for the shark, come and eat me. Again, it's just how really, when you trust in the Lord completely and you believe that He's going to deliver you, He did. I look back and there's no way now that I will jump in the darkness of the night in the ocean. There's no such thing. I would never do that. It took me 2 years.
You often get asked why. Why and where were you working at the time?
I was in the military school because that's the only way to get away from being sent to Angola to fight for communism in Africa. And we had a very large family and a lot of contact with a lot of important people, even in the government. And the guy that headed the educational department in Cuba was a friend of ours. And he got me a school that I could attend and get away. It's a military school, but I could get away. But I was such a good student and I really showed a lot of potential. They wanted me to become part of the Communist Party. And that's when I told my mom, I can't stay. And I was here in Havana, and one night, when I had my post to guard the entrance of the school, I took off my military clothes. My mom had given me clothes that I put in the bushes, changed, walked out of the military school, got to Havana to where my mom, she got me a ticket to drive me, that I could go all the way on the Greyhound bus all the way to Guantanamo. And then in 2 months in there practicing to swim out of the island. Because I was not going to be part of that government. There was no way. Not the way that I saw, the way that they were destroying and lying and taking away all the freedom that we have. So that's mainly the main reason.
What happened to the other kid that swam to
the other young man, his name is Raphael, he made it. I saw him in that hospital before. And then we, after all the medical checkup and everything, then they put us in a military plane from Guantanamo to Miami. And since I had family, my mom had lived here in Orlando before, and I had an aunt, my mom's sister, which was my grandmother, my godmother. I knew the phone number, I knew the address and everything, so as soon as I got to Miami, immediately I grabbed the phone and I called her, and within 8 hours, they were out there picking me up. So I was not in Miami just for less than 1 day. That's a crazy city, and I love to go through it. In fact, I love to go out to the Keys, but Miami is the place that is too crazy for me. But anyway, but that's how I made it through this country. And I am so proud. I have never looked back. And everybody asks me, why don't you go back to Cuba? Cuba, is opening up and all this. And I go like, what? To see the destruction? I had the privilege of going to Hungary and Romania. They were communist countries. And my wife can tell, when I got in there, I got so depressed. I got to almost cry. Because it was like I was back in Cuba, seeing the buildings and everything being destroyed, the condition of the farms and the people. So, you know, the nation so destroyed. It just, I said, I can never go back to Cuba. Knowing that everything, every dollar that enters that island, it doesn't help the people. It helps only the government. And I know that a lot of people don't like what Trump said. Well, I'm not going to fund the military in Cuba, so let's close. And I agree. We don't need to. And unfortunately, I have a cousin of mine, my aunt, my mom's sister, who grew up. I came when he was only 5 years old, has seen all the struggle of the whole family coming from Cuba and staying in his home. He's a communist today. He's an architect up in Madison, Wisconsin. And a couple of years ago, he called me when they opened, when Obama completely opened. And he called me excited, you know, isn't that wonderful? We are going to be able to go to Cuba. And then we can even buy properties out there. And I stayed in silence for a little bit and I said, Douglas, how dare can you say that? Didn't you remember how we came to this nation with absolutely nothing? They took everything that was ours. So we're going to buy back what they took from us. So Castro is going to make 2 or 3 times the money from our place, the people who work hard for it. And that's the other thing. In Cuba, the people don't work hardly anymore. The guy that works for me, his brother still has a little farm just outside of Havana right here. And they grow flour. They can get workers. They cannot get, nobody wants to work. They all say, we're doing business. You know what the business in Cuba is? There's 2 things. You steal and you sell, or you do prostitution. Those are the 2 businesses. So I have totally demoralized the nation. His brother, the guy that worked for me, he says he couldn't take any more. He had to leave. Because even the little square, little area that they grew their corn or potato or whatever, the bananas, everything, they have to guard it day and night. They could not sleep because people will come and steal everything that they produce for their own family. He said, I can't handle it anymore. The other one, Omar, that just came 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, he had a cow that he can milk personally for his little boy, 2 years old. When the boy was 3 years old, the government took the cow and said that he's old enough, he don't need no more milk. And he had it up to here. He says, I got to get out of this place. There is no hope for me and my family in here. And he's working today. I trained him for 1 year to work out in the landscape, and he's making a living. And he's loving the freedom. His wife went to Cuba a couple months ago to see her dying father, and she says, I'll never go back again. It's just, you can't go back in there and see the horrible condition that people live in. So this is my story. This is what really the truth is. But yeah, the media, if you believe what the media is showing in TV and radios and everything, it paints the picture like China is such a great thing. And a lot of the communist country, it's not. The missionary from here that stayed with us explained to us how deprived they are and how the human right is violated in those countries over and over. The world only see what they want to see outside of the big flashlights and and the news and everything that shows that they are such a great place. No, they're not. We had a chance to also go to a Muslim country in Indonesia, Malaysia, and you feel the weight of the evil one in those places, and it's just so overwhelming. I know my wife and she's saying, I'm out. Thank you for the opportunity to get up in here and speak. And my what I need to say is, be faithful. Go and tell the world. I know we lost, what's his name? The Muslim guy that became, yeah, what an awesome man. I saw him debating an imam, apologetic for the Islam. The imam was about 68. He was at that time only 29. And the old man was telling him that, making, oh, you're too young, putting him down. Yet he shone so bright. His demeanor, his knowledge of the whole Quran and the whole Bible and the whole history of the two religions could not be matched. What a powerful young man, yet God took him early to glory. Why? We don't understand. But I also looked at John Piper video the other day. There's two older ladies, missionary in Africa. The news say what a tragedy. One was almost 80 years old, served in, I think, Sierra Leone, and was murdered after serving the people that she loved to. And the other one was a black American doctor, also almost in her 80s, had gone back to Africa to give her life, to bring the gospel and bring hope to those people. And she was in an accident. But John Piper says, can you imagine when they got in the presence of the Lord? And he says, welcome, my faithful servant. There's so much you've done. And then he pointed out how many of us here in the United States are retiring here in the United States and then just enjoying life and saying, you know, I've been golfing, I've been collecting shells, and they die and they get in the presence of God. Oh, but God, look at all the beautiful shells that I collected. Oh, look at the beautiful golf cars that I have playing, you know, and all the things that I have gained. What is God going to say to us? Did you do that for His kingdom or for your selfishness? And it was such a strong message. We concentrate on the wrong things, when the world needs